Ladies and gentlemen, sports fans alike, coming to you from the Rockford Ice Hawks studio here in Chicago, Illinois, this is Bill Swerski's Sports Talk Chicago, one of the couple, two, three best podcasts around. So grab yourself an ice cold one and a bowl of sausage, sit down, park your keister, and listen to This is Bill Swerski's Sports Talk Chicago.
I'm starting 9 dictas.
I'm starting 9 dictas.
All right. Sounds like we need to make a side bet.
Starts with a C, ends with an O, and in the middle is a K.
Ditka's hair follicles cure malaria.
All right, gentlemen, the answer was the Bears.
Coach Ditka's hair could single-handedly cure our dependence on foreign oil.
Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. He's a merciful Ditka.
The Bears.
The Bears. The Bulls.
Please, this is a family show, my friend. No cursing.
Yeah, that kind of language belongs in the gutter, the speakeasy, and Coach Ditka's press conference.
You know,
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host Sean, and this is going to be kind of a special show because this is the first time I've ever recorded the show from somewhere other than my basement studio. I'm recording this show from Petco Park. I am sitting outside the stadium right next, or with the Tony Gwynn statue right behind me. So it's kind of cool. I figured I'm on vacation this week in lovely San Diego, and I wanted to make sure I kept getting the show out, and because I love doing it, and I hope you guys like listening, and I want everyone to get in the rhythm of having the show every week. So I decided what cooler place to do it while I'm on vacation is than at Petco Park, one of the better stadiums in baseball. And, you know, another better reason is with the late, great Tony Gwynn statue right behind me. I'll post some pictures of me with the statue, and I've never been a Padres fan by any stretch, but I think we can all acknowledge how great Tony Gwynn was for the game of baseball. So it's just kind of cool if I'm going to be out of town and wanting to still do the show while I'm on vacation to do it right here from Petco Park. So don't get bothered by the fact that recording's probably not as good. I'm recording on a mobile device, and there's a bunch of drunk people behind me, and the San Diego Comic-Con convention is, 2 blocks away, and I'm right on a busy street, and so there's going to be some noises and distractions, and you probably hear drunk people yelling because there's some bars right here. But I guess first, since we're at Petco Park, start talking about baseball, and the Padres have been beating up on the Cubs, so I don't really want to start there. So let's start with the White Sox, and I'm going to go with the oddball start with Conor Gillespie. He's really on a tear. He's batting .325 on the season, and that's just a really good average for the guy. But that kind of leaves the White Sox in a little bit of a predicament because, who is the third baseman of your future? Conor Gillespie's already up at the big league level playing really well. You got a guy in the minors that you just traded for that's supposed to be your guy of the future with Conor Gillespie as the stopgap. But he's proven that he can really hit the ball in a major league level. I mean, he's got over, half a season played this year, and he's still batting .325. What do you do with him? I mean, the only thing really that's a knock against Conor Gillespie as far as at bats is at the third base position. You really expect to get a lot of power production and RBIs from that position, and you're really not getting that from Conor Gillespie. So, he's a light hitting guy. I mean, he can hit for average. He's getting on base. He's doing what you expect of him, as far as that goes. But he's just not putting the power up and hitting the ball out of the park like you really expect out of a third baseman. I think that's going to be what seals his fate, is if he can't get the power production. do you keep him at third base, or do you move him on to another team? And you really strike while the iron is hot. You've got a guy that's hitting the ball well, and some team out there, the trade deadline might just say, hey, we could use this guy's bat on our lineup and give you something good for it. I think that's definitely something they have to explore if they really think that they have the third baseman in the future in the AAA system. So, that's going to be something interesting that we look forward to this week as the trade deadline is looming the next couple days. So, what happens with Connor Gillespie? I mean, I don't really expect him to get traded, but it wouldn't be the most surprising thing to me. Next thing we got up is Jose Abreu, and Jose Abreu is just tearing the cover off the ball. I mean, Gary before the season, just to interject is I'm without my sidekick Gary this week because I'm in San Diego, he's back in Chicago, and he's at a wedding enjoying himself and having fun, and I'm taking time out of my vacation to do this. But that's okay because I really enjoy this. I hope you guys enjoy listening to it, but hopefully we'll have Gary on next week. I'm just flying solo this week, with the time change and him at a wedding, and it is what it is. But Gary was saying before the season that he was expecting about 30 home runs and a 270 batting average or so. I believe that's what he said with Jose Abreu for this season. And we're just past the All-Star break. I mean, I know it was a little bit late this year, but he's already got 30 home runs on the season. And he's got his batting average up to 291. I mean, earlier in the season, he had it down around the 265, 270 mark or so, but he's really increased that, and he's just getting better and better, and that's really scary because, he's already got a 956 OPS, 291 batting average, 30 home runs. I mean, this is just phenomenal hitting. I mean, the guy is a professional hitter. It's really scary. I mean, I know it's barely over half a season in the major leagues, but this is really impressive. And, so you can't really compare him to like an Albert Pujols or a Miguel Cabrera or anybody like that where they've put these numbers up season after season after season. But, you can't knock anything he's done. He's more than exceeded what they're paying him for the season and what they expected of him. He's just really killing the ball. And White Sox fans really have to be excited about having this guy for the next several years on your team because he's just going to get better and better because, teams thought they could do things to start fooling him and showing him different looks and different pitches and pitching him different ways, and he's responded to it so well. You're not fooling him. In fact, everything you're doing is causing him to hit home runs at a higher rate and start hitting for a higher batting average, and you're not fooling him. So the guy really works hard at his craft. I mean, he's not the most phenomenal dynamic first baseman as a fielder, but the guy can just crush the cover off the ball. And Mark McGwire's 49 rookie home run record. You got to start being a little worried about that if you're a fan of the stats like that, because he's only 19 home runs away from tying it, and he's got the better part of 40% of a season left. So Abreu's on the tear, so that's just so impressive to watch. Another guy that's on the team that is just ridiculously impressive is Chris Sale. Guy's 10-1 right now with a 1.88 ERA and a .86 WHIP. I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, right now, who else can you compare that, having a chance to win the Cy Young? The guy is automatic right now. I mean, he goes up there, he takes his ball every fifth day, and just gets the win. And that's what he does. And there's really nothing that you can do to stop him. He goes up there and just mows down the lineup. It's not even like he has a rough outing every now and then, and the offense picks him up. The guy just goes out there and just dominates. It's so ridiculous. It's just such a fascinating thing. Is you've got quite possibly the best hitter currently in the American League. You team him up with the best pitcher in the American League, and you've got a team that should be doing better. Especially, I mean, looking at what they've got on their roster, it's they've got a decent team, especially since considering what they went through last year. But the White Sox just aren't putting together, and part of it is their bullpen. I mean, they have, one of the worst teams as far as number of blown saves, and that's just, pretty sad and pathetic. I mean, granted, there's a lot of injuries on this roster, so, but they really have got to pick it up in that respect, and they've been doing that a little bit. If you look at since the All-Star break, they had the 3-game series against the Royals, which wasn't a good way to start the second half of the season, or the symbolic second half of the season, because the All-Star game was late this year, losing 2 of 3 to the Royals. You had Sale come up and save your butts on that series, getting the win, and they put Petrika in there to cap off the win, and he pitched pretty well in that game. Then you had the loss where Carroll had just an awful game. They tried Webb in there to end the game. Quintana had a strong start, but you had another blown save. And then you had the 3-game winning streak against Minnesota Twins. And Noesi had a strong start. Sale had a great start. Danks got a little roughed up, though. But, you had Petrika, Taylor Thompson, and Webb in there again. So it looks like Robin Ventura is really trying out who's going to be the closer right now and seeing who's going to be the guy that steps up and takes the ball. It's something that the White Sox really got to figure out for this season if they have any hopes of doing something worthwhile for the season. I mean, granted the Tigers are sort of running away with this division. There's nothing to say that they can't come back and do something. It's kind of a fairly evenly matched division. So the White Sox, if they can just piece together some semblance of a bullpen and keep Abreu and Sale pitching well, and some other guys, doing what they're doing, they've got a fairly strong team. So it's one of those things that everyone's got to, play their part, and they could be, if nothing else, they could play a good spoiler. I guess we'll just swing over the north side. I mean, as far as the major league level, is there that much more to talk about? The good thing is the first week after the All-Star game, Anthony Rizzo was named the National League Player of the Week. In that week, he batted .455, 3 home runs, 4 RBIs, bringing his batting average up to the season for .282. He's got 25 home runs on the season, which is, I believe, tops in the National League at this time. 56 RBIs and .916 OPS. I mean, both White Sox and the Cubs just really have solid first basemen this year. Abreu, who is a little bit more of a professional hitter, got more home runs, better batting average, higher OPS, but not by incredible numbers. Rizzo's definitely the better of the fielders. He's a much better fielder, but both teams have just phenomenal first basemen, and that's really something to build on. You get, holy crap, a rat just jumped up and went into a garbage can like 3 feet away from me. That's kind of creepy. So, I mean, you build with pitching and starting with your corner spots, with your third base and your first base, and both teams are got their first baseman down, and both teams are really struggling with what they're going to do with the third base position. One team has a good idea, and the other one has no idea, and so that's something to at least look forward to. Is you got the first baseman down pat. Going into the All-Star break, last time we talked, is we really had no idea what the Cubs were going to do at the second base position, because what the brass was saying is Alcantara was only there for 3 games, and that was while Darwin Barney was having his wife was having the baby. And then after that, it was, well, he's going to be up through the All-Star break. And then once the All-Star break came and went, he was still there. And shortly after, the Cubs decided to, give Darwin Barney his packing papers They designated him for assignment, so Darwin Barney's gone, and I think nobody expected Darwin Barney to finish the season with the Cubs. I can't imagine anybody was thinking that, but I really thought people, and me included, that Darwin Barney was going to finish the season with another team because the Cubs traded him. I figured, a decent fielding second baseman, good teammate, and if he could pick up his batting numbers a little bit, that he'd be something that you could at least trade away and get a low-level prospect, that you have the chance for, because he wasn't going to be a Cub for long. But instead, they just designated him for assignment, and he's gone. There's, wish the guy best of luck, but Darwin Barney had to go. He just was stinking it up. And Alcantara lit it up during that first week or so as a Cub, and he's come back down to earth a little bit with a 255 batting average, but he's got a triple, several doubles, a couple home runs. He's for a kid that came up so quickly, he's really, really doing well. And he's a solid fielder. He's got the speed. He's got a little pop in his bat, and that average is going to come back. It's ebb and flow. It hasn't been that many games, so one bad game can suddenly cause a big dip in your batting average. So, like I said, before the All-Star break, is even though he was hitting well over 300, that wasn't something that was likely to continue. But I did like his approach to the bat, to the plate, and so he's the guy that I expect to stick on, and they're going to keep him up all season. He's the second baseman of the future, and they just really need to get him at bats. And I think the Cubs realize. But anyways, Alcantara is here to stay, but the Cubs brass really knows they have to pick up the pace on this rebuilding project, as they can't do a 7-8 year rebuild. Even though the fans have given them so much leeway, they just can't keep doing this, and they're starting to realize that. And that's why part of the reason why Alcantara is staying up. He's going to stay up all season, and I fully expect Baez to be a September call-up. I fully expect Chris Bryant to, be on the opening day roster for 2015. Solaire's been promoted up to Iowa. Almora's been promoted up to Daytona, or from Daytona to Nashville, not Nashville, whatever, Tennessee. It's the only city I know in Tennessee, Memphis. But they got promoted up to AA Tennessee, and Schwarber got promoted up from Idaho to Kane County, now to Daytona. So you have the Cubs starting to accelerate the process and moving people up and making them see better competition. And it seems like people are responding, as Soler in his time already in Iowa is batting .333 and is a week up there. Bryant, since his promotion, is batting .308 with 11 home runs, 29 RBIs in 35 games. Baez has got his average up to 259 now with 19 home runs and 73 RBIs in 95 games. I mean, those are decent numbers, especially considering his really soft start. He really struggled at the plate, and he's starting to heat up a little bit. So I fully expect Baez to be a September call-up, and Bryant to start the opening day roster. And that also has me. Almora's batting .283 in Daytona, well, it was, and Schwarber now in Daytona is batting .281 with 21 games. So you see this acceleration in who they're picking up, and that really had me thinking is, if they are truly pulling in this acceleration process into the rebuild, what's the thing that they really need at this point? That's pitching. The Cubs' pitching is, something we're going to talk about next, and it's for 3 years in a row you've traded away 40% of your starting rotation. That's 3 years in a row. I mean, it's in the span of 3 years, you've more than turned over your whole rotation. You can't do that and expect to win. You sure some of the guys that you got rid of weren't guys that were going to stick around, but if you had if you had a Garza and a Samardzija and a Hamels on your roster, you could fully expect to be much more competitive than throwing stinky ass Edwin Jackson on the mound every 5 days. And Edwin Jackson is terrible. Edwin Jackson every 5 days and win a ball game. I mean, this team is on pace to have another 100-loss season. You just can't keep doing that. Edwin Jackson is terrible. If they could just send him away to anybody for anything, whether it be they send him away for nothing and have that team pick up most of his salary, or if you could get something for him and pay some of his salary, you can't keep putting him out there. Edwin Jackson is awful. There's no two ways about it, and no matter if you traded away Garza, you traded away Samardzija, you traded away Hamels, and you traded away all these other guys, it doesn't change the fact that Edwin Jackson isn't who you thought he was when you signed him, and he's awful. And Travis Wood at this point is really struggling at the mound too, and I don't know what's going on with him, but he hasn't had a solid start in a while. And he's got his ERA up around 5. So you're really struggling, and you got Wada coming up, Tsuyoshi Wada coming up from, he was an all-star in AAA, but he was such a light-throwing guy. You knew that wasn't going to work out in the majors. He's struggling. He's got a 5 ERA. Right now all you've got is Hendrick, who's pitching actually pretty well. Dallas Beeler has got some solid stuff. He had a rough outing one game, but he's got some solid stuff. But Arrieta is all you've got, and he's pitching well. You need to bring in some other pitching. You've got all these trade pieces. Do you go for a David Price? Can you pry a David Price away? And at this point, you sort of have to, or you expect to open up the purse strings and sign somebody, because you can't go in the next season with Edwin Jackson and Travis Wood and Tsuyoshi Wada. And the Cubs are figuring out who those last couple starters are going to be. And hopefully they're able to move Edwin Jackson. And I mean, if you move 60% of your starting rotation by the trade deadline, you're going to be up for a really tough year and move on towards a 100-loss season again. He's got to go. And Hendrick is a guy that you're really depending on to play well, and hopefully they can get Travis Wood turned around a little bit and pitching more towards how he had been the last season and a half. Jake Arrieta is looking really solid, and Dallas Beeler's playing well. So if you could get these guys, and the guy they just got from Oakland, if you even try putting him in and put together a 5-piece rotation, that throw Edwin Jackson in the bullpen if you can't trade him. The guy is horrendous on the mound, and he's an automatic loss. Maybe you want that because you want that one last number, top 5 overall pick, but you can't just keep trotting out a bad team like this. And then I think seeing some of the moves that they're making by designating Darwin Barney, sending Mike Olt down to AAA, you have, and then you're promoting Almora, you're promoting Soler, you've already promoted Bryant, and you promoted Schwarber, and you promoted Alcantara to the major league level. Is maybe they are starting to accelerate this a little bit, and because they see that how this effect is, and they see the financial plan is starting to come through with the stadium plans and the city agreeing to their plans for the stadium. So maybe this is all how it's supposed to start shaking out once they get the approval to start working on the stadium. I don't know, but whatever it is the Cubs need to start doing something, because they're already losing fans, and you can't keep talking about the what ifs of the minor leagues, is because Bryant seems like this sure thing is possible, but he's still not doing it at the major league level yet. Baez has had his ups and downs in AAA. Addison Russell is unproven commodity. He's really young. Almora and Soler really young. all these kids are young. You don't know exactly what you have. You just know about the potential they have. On to the Bulls, Chicago Bulls. The last right after the last episode, they signed Aaron Brooks, and Aaron Brooks is another little point guard. I mean, they list him at 6 foot, but I'm guessing he's more of like 5'10". He's such a little guy, but he's totally fitting in the mold of what the Bulls and Thibodeau like to use with like guys like C.J. Watson, John Lucas III, D.J. Augustine, Nate Robinson. They love their small point guards, and Aaron Brooks is a guy who can score, and you can really use him as stopgap when Derrick Rose comes out of the game. You re-sign Kirk Heinrich, who can play some point guard if need be, and you got Aaron Brooks to come in at guard. You've got guys that can sustain your scoring when Derrick Rose is not on the floor, and that's really a key. The other big story that's with the Bulls is this Kevin Love situation just won't officially die. I mean, first it was the Bulls were leading in the rumors of getting Kevin Love away from Minnesota, and then it was Golden State, then it was back to Chicago, then the deal was off, and then now it's back to Chicago as the favorite in either giving up Taj or Kevin Butler, along with Nikolai Mirotic and Doug McDermott to get Kevin Love. And I wish Gary was here right now because we have differing opinions on this. He really thinks that Kevin Love would be a much bigger he thinks it'd be a win-win to both teams, but he thinks that Kevin Love would be a great piece for the Bulls, teaming him up with Paul Gasol and Kirk Heinrich and healthy Derrick Rose and Joakim Noah and whatnot. But I feel like you're trading away younger future players for Kevin Love, and you have this one guy where you're giving up McDermott, Mirotic, and Taj, who can all, the thing about one player is that if you stop that one guy, you stop all of that production. But if you've got 3 guys coming in and playing well, you can't stop all 3 at the same time, most likely. And McDermott had a great summer league. Mirotic has been playing phenomenally in Europe, and Taj is coming into his own. I mean, he was finalist for the 6th Man Award. So it's to me, I don't know if it makes any sense. But, another thing about it is if you look at it is, in his career, Kevin Love has averaged over 26 points a game and over 13 rebounds a game. And there's only 13 players in the history of the NBA that have done that, and 11 of them are in the Hall of Fame. The 12th one is Kevin Love. The 13th one is Shaquille O'Neal, who's going to be in the NBA Hall of Fame. So that's actually really good company right there. But still, Kevin Love, what's he ever done as far as winning? Numbers are numbers, but the guy hasn't won anything in Minnesota. And sure, they haven't put a team around him, but he hasn't even been able to will them much as far as even a few playoff wins together. So I don't know if he's the answer in giving up so much for him. I really think you stick it out with what you have. You amnesty Boozer, you bring over draft McDermott, you bring over Mirotic, and you've got Jimmy Buckets and Taj Gibson. I think you've actually got a solid team, but it's these rumors are just not going to die. I think a lot of it is being driven by Derrick Rose and wanting to play with his buddy Kevin Love. And the last thing I want to say is I heard a comment that seemed, sort of benign, but Tom Thibodeau was saying that, they were asking about Nikolai Mirotic, and he was saying that he's going to have a big adjustment going from the European game to the American NBA game, and sure, that's true. Anytime you switch a league, you're going to have an adjustment going from the NBA to the style of basketball they play in Europe. It's just different, even though it's the same game. It's different styles. They play differently. But what made me scratch my head a little bit and think about, and maybe it has a little more meaning than that, is that it seems almost like Tom Thibodeau is hinting that he's not going to have a lot of faith in Nikolai Mirotic coming off right off the bat, and that the guy's not going to get as much playing time as you would think for what they're paying him, and having such a productive career over in Europe. And then, he's going to stick it out with his core guys that he trusts, and then slowly give Nikolai Mirotic those minutes. And that's the one frustrating thing about Tom Thibodeau. The guy's a really great coach. He can coach defense. He situationally has a solid offense. I mean, the offense is terrible, so don't take it as I think it's a solid offense that can score points. But considering what they had without Derrick Rose and running the offense through Joakim Noah, and with the scrubs that they had on the team, the fact that they were putting up as many points as they were is actually kind of impressive. I mean, it was no offensive juggernaut by any stretch. It wasn't even an average offense, but considering the pieces they had, I was a little bit impressed. But you have a guy in Mirotic who's playing professional basketball, and European basketball is not what it was in 1993 or 92. It's come a long way, and these guys can really play. Nikolai Mirotic can shoot the ball. He can pass the ball. He can run the floor a little bit. Let the guy have a chance. Tom Thibodeau, he has trust issues, and he is not willing to sacrifice regular season wins for the greater good. That's what separates him from Popovich. Is Popovich he doesn't care about regular season games. They don't really mean anything to him. He wants, sure, he would love to win them all and when they go on in the playoffs, but he wants to rest his players. He wants to get the whole team involved. He wants that whole bench in there playing minutes to relieve some of his older players. Tom Thibodeau does not. Tom Thibodeau wants to work everybody as many minutes as they physically can play. And if you plan to do that, you should plan to start your golf season early, because you're not going to make it far in the playoffs. You have a guy in Mirotic who can play. You got to trust him. And if he blows you a regular season game with some boneheaded move, you take action then, and then you go on, because you can lose regular season games. It's not going to kill you. So Tibbs really needs to work on that. That's all for the Bulls. Once free agency is finished and some of these trade rumors are done, we'll have a lot more to talk about. Next week we'll have some more to discuss. We'll have Gary back on. But that's really all about the Bulls. Blackhawks, there's really not much. We got 2 months till training camp. They got another new goalie coach in Jimmy Waite, who is a guy who used to play for the Blackhawks. And there was a time when the Blackhawks had Jimmy Waite, they had Ed Belfour, and they had Dominik Hasek. So he's a guy who's played in the NHL, and for several years. He's played until he was 40 years old. So, and his brother was a goalie coach for Corey Crawford a couple years ago. So I don't know what to expect as a coach. And, the goaltending needs to get a little better this year, especially Antti Ranta. And Crawford needs to be much more consistent. So we'll see what Jimmy Waite, what he's going to do to improve performance. And the only other thing is the Blackhawks convention was last weekend. And, if nothing else, it really brings the fans closer to this team. You've got a bunch of characters on this team with, Sharpie and Kaner and Crow and all these guys. There's it's a lot of characters. Shaw, and you get their personality starts to really shine, and you can really bond with the fans, and that does nothing but improve relations with the fans in the city, and improve your attendance and the TV viewership. It's such a smart move all around, and the convention's so much fun. I really wanted to get down there, but being on vacation this week, I had to get my hours in and get work done, so I couldn't make it. But really great thing. Nothing crazy there. Everyone told some stories and had some jokes, and Taves and Kane, officially got announced as being Blackhawks for the next 8 years. But the most important thing is we're about 2 months away from training camp, so we'll really start to see what the Blackhawks are going to do. That's about it. And then, last but not least, is we got the Chicago Bears. We are in training camp right now. It just started. I'm going to be hopefully going, in the next 2 weeks down to Bourbonnais and see them play. I'll definitely see them at Soldier Field when they have family practice day. But we've got the stories is the battles in training camp, and that's not just positional battles, but that's also physical confrontations that they've had during the games or during the practices. We already had in 2 practices, we had 2 pretty serious fights. One with Eric Weems versus Sherrick McManus, and the other one was Jordan Mills with Lamar Houston, and that's Houston's second altercation. The first one was with Martellus Bennett. So, Lamar Houston's really coming out there and showing he's a competitor, but, he's got to tone it down just a little bit as far as, after the whistle, because, Kyle Long can attest that if you keep sustaining and going after somebody, you're not only going to get, a penalty, you're going to get fined. And, he paid like an $8,000 fine last year for that fight against St. Louis, where his brother had to come and yank him off. So, the team's got to show some discipline, and that's, sure, they're showing fire out there, but you also have to play contained, because, recklessness is going to get exploited by professional offenses. Maybe a crappy offense isn't going to get exploited by it, but real professional offenses like the Broncos and the Patriots, they're really going to exploit it. Chris Conte is a guy that, many of the quote-unquote experts predicted would, make the roster as one of the safeties, and probably not starting, but on the roster. And he's already starting the training camp on the PUP list, the physically unable to perform, or physically unable to play, however you want to word it. So he's already starting off injured, and that's not going to help his chances. Just came off a surgery, just came off a really, really rough year, and then now he's starting the training camp where he can't even play. And then, couple that with Adrian Wilson, who's a guy who he's only the 6th player in NFL history to have 25 interceptions and 25 sacks at cornerback or at safety. And so he's had a really great career, physically gifted guy, and he's coming in after a season-long injury, and it had been described as an Achilles injury, and always an Achilles, but suddenly he's saying, why are people saying it's an Achilles? That's really driving me nuts. It's a rumor. It doesn't make any sense. And he's saying that he had some sort of bone deformity in his heel, and they're saying now is Hagelin deformity. And basically what that is if it's like a bone spur in your heel, and it causes, like inflammation and bursitis in the heel. And basically, rest will heal it. You can put an orthopedic shoe on or orthopedic insert into the shoe, and it should really help that, and give them non-steroidal like NSAIDs, naproxen, ibuprofen to help reduce the inflammation, and couple that with the time he's had off, and if it really is Hagelin's deformity, that he could be a healthy guy this year, and that is not a good sign for Chris Conte, because you already have, the rookie that's from Minnesota that's that's already looking like he could be a starter, and then you put Adrian Wilson in there, the veteran, the all-pro veteran, and suddenly, it's making it a much, much harder time for Chris Conte to even make this team, let alone start. And the one final thing is Kyle Fuller is already looking phenomenal in practice, and he's looking like he's definitely going to be a starter. Charles Tillman's days looking numbered here. So, I mean, they're going to keep him as, for the rest of the season, but not looking good for the future for Charles Tillman as a Chicago Bear. But, Kyle Fuller, it's nice to have 3 cornerbacks that can really play. If you can keep all 3 guys healthy, you're going to need that against teams like the Packers and the Lions. That's really all I have. I mean, this episode is, is a little awkward just with the people you all went by and the rat jumping by me and, being outside at Petco Park and being next to the street and the drunk people. It's a little awkward, but not having my sidekick Gary here or any other people on the show. So with that, I'm going to sign off and tell you to check out Swerskisports.com. That's SWERSKI sports.com. Or check us out on Twitter at twitter.com/Swerski Sports or Facebook.com/Swerski Sports. And also make sure to check out, we're coming up on hockey season, so make sure to check out our sponsor, the Rockford Ice Hogs, at icehogs.com, because even though we're live, we are recording outside. We normally record out of the Rockford Ice Hogs studio. So thanks again for checking us out, and until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her, you can have her, she's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van, and she looks like...
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.
The Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down.